Hey there, audio listener. Michael here. Before we get started with today's episode, Travis and I wanted to tell you about a really fun giveaway we're going to be doing over the next week or so to honor Ultra Day on July the 10th. Travis, do you want to tell the folks about it?
Absolutely. We're going to be giving away a movie spree code to Ultraman Ace to one of our listeners. The only thing you have to do to enter this giveaway is go to our YouTube channel, Kaiju Weekly Podcast on YouTube, and we're going to have this promo as a separate video. All you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel and comment on that video. Any comment that you want to leave, just leave us a comment. And if you're not a YouTube user, what you can do is also go over to our Twitter account. We're going to have a post on Twitter about this giveaway. You can retweet that and make sure to follow us on there, and you'll be entered that way too. And we will pick one person from that combined pool of people to give away this code to.
Awesome. All right, let's on to the next episode.
I have a new way of introducing the podcast this week. Instead of doing our normal intro, I want to try something different.
Okay, let's go for it.
Okay. Ooh, Kaiju Weekly, listen if you please. Ooh, Kaiju Weekly, we watch monster movies.
What the hell was that?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
That's the intro. That's the intro. We're not doing the regular intro.
Oh no. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, whoever's listening.
Oh man, if that doesn't get us in the mood for this recording, then I don't know what will.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think we've both had a pretty interesting morning. I know I have. I thought I was going to have to cut out. Well, I thought I was going to have to just use my phone for this recording, and because I was having some technical issues. I've been having technical issues all morning. Yeah, so I won't go into the really bloody details of it, but for anyone out there who's ever tried to update their operating system and then run into a problem, you understand how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, that's technology. I hate technology.
I was stupid enough to think that it was a good idea to do it on a recording day too, so go figure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but then, if you think, well, it's usually supposed to be, something simple. You've done it before and it hasn't had any problems. And it's like, yeah. So I completely understand. It's like, well, I've done this a million times and it hasn't messed up. Now it decides to mess up on the day that I need to record.
Yeah, I know. And I was telling you just now that I like to do just sort of a clean install because I just think that it's just one of my little preferences. That I like to do when I install a new operating system, and it didn't quite work out for me this time. But luckily I got back up and running. I had another copy of my old OS saved and ready to go because I love redundancy. And so we're here. We're a little bit late. The listener, obviously you don't know that, but we're a little bit late recording this morning. But we're fine now. I think maybe.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, we'll find out as we go through the episode. So
hopefully.
So let's start with the news this week. So giving everybody a heads up, I mentioned it in the last episode that I'm going to be moving house this month. So for the next couple of episodes, we're not going to have a news segment, or at least not as an extensive of a news segment as we usually do, because we're going to be recording ahead so that I can have time to pack and everything and move my stuff. So this week we've got a few news items, but depending on how you feel about the news segment, you may be disappointed or happy for the next couple of episodes.
Yeah, it'll give you time to do what you got to do, and it'll give me just a little bit of a break. So yeah, let's cue the beady beady.
Yep, cue the beady beady. All right, so our first bit of news is a simple piece of news. We have now seen all of the cover artwork for the Arrow Video Channel's upcoming release of Gamera, the Complete Collection. All of it done by Matt Frank, of course. And it is just amazing.
Indeed.
They are amazing. And something else that's really neat is that all of these movies will be available for streaming on the Arrow Video Channel in both the US and the UK starting on July 1st, which is the week of, actually, that's today. That's today of the day that this episode goes out.
Oh, nice. Okay, awesome.
So yeah, they'll be available on the Arrow Video Channel. So it's a streaming channel, much like Netflix or one of those, or like the Criterion Channel, things like that. So you have to pay to have a subscription to it, but yeah, all of the Gamera things Gamera movies are going to be on there, and the cover of each movie is going to be the artwork that Matt Frank has done. That's going to be part of the Blu-ray collection as well.
Yeah. So just really quickly, Travis, have you had a chance to look at all these and decide which is your favorite so far?
I have looked through them, and I gotta go with Legion. I think Legion. No, but then I really like Gamera the Brave too. Oh, that one's so good.
It is indeed. I think it's a tie for me between Legion. I'm with you. I think the coloring on Legion is phenomenal. I love those deep blues and purples and magentas and stuff like that, and greens and stuff. But I also got to go with maybe Gamera versus Gauss from the Showa era. I really like that little bit of artwork too.
Oh yeah, Gauss is really good. Yeah. Oh man, I'm looking at him right now, and now surprisingly, Super Monster looks really good.
Well, we won't go there. Let's just say the artwork is better than the film itself.
The artwork looks great. I mean, just because Gamera's kind of got this like blue glow, like aura around him and everything. Mm-hmm. I don't know. They're all so good, but yeah, I still think Legion is probably my favorite. But I do really like Gamera the Brave too.
Yeah, it's really good artwork. I like it. I like I actually like all of them. I know that's sort of a huge cop out, but I really love all of them, honestly. But but Gauss and the Legion ones those two were probably my favorite.
Yeah, definitely. So if anybody is interested in looking at these and seeing what we're talking about, you can check out Kaiju News Outlet. They have all of them on there on Twitter and Instagram. You can check them out. They have all of them where you can see them.
And if you're a YouTube subscriber, when I upload this episode to YouTube, I always try to put images up for points of reference so that folks that are watching / listening can know exactly what we're talking about. So I'll throw up an image of this on the YouTube channel.
Awesome. Another reason for everyone to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We didn't hit our goal of 100 by the end of June, but we maybe 100 by the end of July. So please,
fingers crossed.
Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you can. Okay, moving on to our next bit of news. Since there's no G-Fest this summer, Kyle Yount and some other people in the Kaiju community have decided to put on an event online, and they're calling it KaijuCon Line. Like KaijuCon Online. And that is going to be July 11th through the 12th. Right now, plans are still being made, so I don't have any other information on here about it, but I do know that some of our friends and fellow podcasters are going to be involved in some of the stuff. So it's worth checking out if you are a Kaiju fan.
Yeah, I think, let's see, I think it was me and a few others, maybe in a Twitter thread chat, whatever. We were going to maybe possibly try to put together a panel
Mhm.
That included, of course, us and Monsters versus Men, Nathan and Henry from It Came From a Monster Movie. Unfortunately, that kind of fell through, so we're not going to be able to do that. But
Right.
I'm most definitely going to be tuning in for this because I think it was first announced on their Collect All Monsters show, where they talk about collecting and all that good stuff. But it was first announced there, I want to say, because Kyle is one of the main hosts for that show. So yeah, I'm super interested. It's going to be a lot of fun. I know our friend Nathan from the Monster Island Film Vault, he's got a panel scheduled with, I think Daniel DeMana. Is it Daniel? Yeah. With
Yeah.
Danny DeMana.
Mhm.
I'm
The
not sh-
Godzilla novelization project.
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
Or
Mhm.
that him. Yes. Danny DeMana. He's got a panel scheduled with him. I want to say it's probably the same panel that Nathan said he had scheduled if G Fest was actually going to physically happen. So I imagine the content is going to be exactly the same.
Yeah, yeah. I wish we could organize a panel for Kaiju Quarantine, but it's kind of short notice, and there's so many of us, and with me moving, it just was like I don't think we can try to organize that. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna try to tune in as much of it as I can,
Mhm.
and it seems like it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm glad that we're getting something since G Fest got canceled.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
It's a good way for us to stay in the loop as far as the kaiju community is concerned.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm definitely gonna be watching. I love what those guys do. I love what I've been a long time listener of the KaijuCast, so I love what Kyle does. I'm sure he'll be super involved, and he'll hopefully have a lot of other interesting guests and panels, and maybe a virtual dealers room for those of us who like that kind of thing.
Ooh, that sounds cool. Yeah, so that is that. And as we get more information, if we get more information, I'll include it in the show notes. Or you can go and follow Kyle at the KaijuCast Twitter. You can also follow G Fest because they are also doing our G fan. And follow them because they are doing stuff along with it since G Fest got canceled. Or you can follow, like we said, Nathan. A lot of us, a lot of the fellow podcasters are going to be involved. So follow any of them for more information because of our recording schedule. If news comes out, it may have already recorded the episodes that will come out before it actually goes live. So yeah, just we want to make sure people have access to information though.
Yeah, for sure. We won't just go dark on social media, even though we are recording a couple of episodes in advance. We will still be active, and if there's anything of interest, we'll make sure to let you guys know about it somehow.
Yep. Yep. All right. And the last bit of news I wanted to cover was just an update on last week's news story about the Birth of Ultraman Blu-ray set that we are getting from Subaraya or from Mill Creek. So the episodes that are included, because like we said last week, it's not all of the episodes. It's just a select kind of best of. So we've got episodes 1 and 2, Ultra Operation Number 1 and Shoot the Invader. Episodes 19 and episode 19, which is features the red-skinned monster Banila and his blue-skinned rival Aboras. Is that how you say it? I can't remember. So that's what that one is. Episodes 26 and 27, The Monster Highness, features the ancient monster Gomorrah.
Which is two of my favorite episodes from the original series, so I'm happy those got included.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine them not including those in this set, because, like, come on. Episode 33, The Forbidden Worlds, to alien Mephilas tries to convince a boy to give him the Earth. Even Ultraman may not be able to stop him.
That's also a good one.
And episode 37, Little Hero. which has the return of Pigmon.
Yay!
Pigmon warns that the evil creature Geronimon is reviving an army of monsters to destroy Ultraman and the Science Special Search Party. So that's the episodes that we're going to be getting. That just gives you, lets you know exactly which episodes. We are getting the subtitles and also the English dub for all of these. Yep. Also included, like we talked about last week, was the Birth of Ultraman pre-premiere special. This aired in Japan on July 10th, 1966, 1 week before the original series premiered. This stage show was filmed before a live studio audience and introduced viewers to the story, cast, and characters of Ultraman. So that is also going to be included. Now, a revision that I wanted to bring up, because last week we said that this was going to be costing $19.99. On the official page that I looked at, it says that the retail is going to be $25.99 US dollars.
Okay. Now we may very well get a slightly cheaper price on Amazon. Usually when companies like Mill Creek and well, they did it with the Criterion Collection, and Arrow has done it with the Gamera Collection. Give Amazon Prime subscribers a lower price.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll most likely be grabbing it from Amazon, and even at $25, it's still not sort of a break your bank kind of thing, because I am actually really excited that they included some actually really good episodes. I see that they included episode 2, Shoot the Invader, which is the debut of Boltan, which is also a very good episode. We covered that on the podcast. I think it was you and me, or may have been you and Steven. I'm not sure, but I just remember whoever it was, we really enjoyed that episode.
Yeah, it's still one of my favorites of the entire original series. I love that episode. I'm still on the fence about this set, just because you're essentially paying for episodes that you already paid for if you bought the full series when it came out. So to me, I'm still dubious on it, but I'm also more frugal, and so I'm on a tight budget, so I have to limit how much I spend. So maybe that's what's getting to me, is the fact of like, why am I paying for something twice when I already own it? But at the same time, I also
Travis, you're trying to talk me out of it, man. Okay, listeners, maybe I should have Travis as my accountant, because I tend to spend way too much money. Yeah, that's all I'll say. And Travis is extremely frugal, so maybe I need to just hire Travis as my accountant. What do you say?
Yeah, no, you need somebody who's not on the verge of poverty to be your accountant.
Oh, come on, you're not on. I wouldn't say that, man. But it's good to be frugal. It really is.
Yeah, well, I don't know it's such a, because I do see why this is appealing. Of course, we talked about last week how the artwork on it is that Alex Ross artwork that he did for the comic book that they're using as the Blu-ray cover. So that's amazing. Getting that premiere thing, that's great. And it's still just kind of like, if this is all we're getting, if it's nothing else special in it, does it justify buying it twice? Does it justify not having that pre-premiere in the original set, that they put out? I don't know. I'm on the fence about it.
Yeah. And it's going to be ultimately up to the fans and people who want to invest, a little bit of extra money in it. And like I said, the price is, even at $25, if that's what we end up having to pay even on Amazon, the price is still low enough to where you're not gonna have buyer's remorse over it, I don't believe. Now, if this was a $50 Blu-ray, even me at that, I couldn't. Right. I couldn't justify it.
Yeah. And I think maybe my feelings come from the fact that I'm just not as big of an Ultraman fan as some people are. I'm a bigger Kamen Rider fan than Ultraman fan, so maybe that's playing a part in this. So
I've evolved into a big Ultraman fan, and we'll cover that probably in the next episode when we talk about when we talk about Ultraman and we will recap later on in a future episode the episodes 1 and 2 of the recently released Ultra Z. So yeah, we'll save that for later. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But that's it for the news. The only other bit of news that I saw, which isn't really news, was that they released another trailer for the Transformers movies. I think it's a trilogy of movies that's coming to Netflix. The War for Cybertron.
Oh yeah. Me and Steven talked about this during, I think it was our Son of Kong episode. It was just me and Steven doing that episode, and we talked about the Transformers trilogy, and we both agreed that it looked interesting, that we would probably check it out. So I'll watch it.
Yeah, and it's coming out towards the end of July. I think July 21st or July 22nd is when it's supposed to hit Netflix.
I don't have the details in front of me, but that sounds about right. I think I even saw I was watching I was watching Netflix last night or the night before or maybe it was the night before when I saw it. When I saw a little, like, Netflix will run like a little ad. If you leave Netflix paused for long enough, it runs these little ads to show you what's coming. So I think that was one of them. I remember just kind of looking up and just kind of seeing it for like a split second and then thinking, oh, that looks cool. Okay.
Yeah. I'm looking forward. I'm a big Transformers fan. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
I like classic Transformers myself. I like the Michael Bay movies. I think they're fine. Especially the first maybe 2 movies were good. And even The Last Night was pretty good, I thought. Please don't hurt me. Anyway, but no, I will watch this. I definitely will, because I grew up with Transformers, much like Power Rangers, G.I. Joe, and some others. I grew up with it. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yep. Looking forward to it. But yeah, so that's it for the news segment. So now we can get into our main topic for this week.
All right, let's do it.
So we asked the trivia question last week to get us onto the main topic. What film is loosely based off the 1900 Japanese novel, The Undersea Warship, A Fantastic Tale of Island Adventure? And we had a bunch of responses. So just to start off with some of the funny ones, Giant Monster BS, our friends over at that podcast, sent in Atragon.
I really like those guys. They're always super witty with their responses. I do. They're good. They're good dudes.
Yeah, they are. Nathan from Monster Island Film Vault, who also always sends us a funny response, said The Hunt for Blue September. I like that one.
I do like that one. That's a reference to a movie I actually really enjoy, The Hunt for Red October.
Jimmy from NASA sent us the classic film, The Ship Whose Captain is Too Scary for Jimmy to Ask to Have in His Garage. I think that we're seeing some behind the scenes stuff about Jimmy and who he's willing to work with.
Yeah, we are. I have spoken to Nathan and Jimmy before, and anytime I bring up a certain submarine / spaceship or I don't know. I don't even know what you would classify the Go Tango, but yeah, he's trepidatious to talk about it for some strange reason. I don't know why. It's sort of like I dare not speak its name situations. I don't know what's up there, Jimmy, but maybe you can tell us in a future date.
Yeah. Alex Sperling sent us he started typing in Atragon. And then Thorax, one of our Patreon supporters, sent in one of my favorite films of all time, Atragon. It's up there with Godzilla 1954.
All right, good man. Good man.
That's high praise for this film. That is really high praise. And then, of course, we have Faye, the Aqua Slug, Michael Edwards, and La Vida Oscura, who all said Atragon and got it correct. So thank you guys for sending in your answers to that trivia question. Our topic for this week is Atragon from 1963, directed by Ishiro Honda, starring Jun Tazaki, Tadeo Takashima, Yoko Fujiyama, Hideo Amamoto, Tetsuko Kobayashi, and special effects by Eiji Tsuburaya. I'm getting better with the Japanese names. Can you tell?
You are. Those lessons are really paying off for you, Travis. I'm proud of you. If we could insert some kind of hand clap effect into this portion of the conversation, I think that would be appropriate.
Just a nice soft golf clap.
Yeah, a nice soft golf clap. There we go.
Yeah. So the plot breakdown for this movie is when an ancient underground civilization and their snake-like guardian plots to reclaim the surface world, those living on the surface fight back. So, getting into our opening thoughts, what are your opening thoughts on this movie, Michael?
I like it. I really, really like it. Now, we'll get into the details in just a little bit, but it's slow to get started. The first 30 minutes or so, it's crucial because it gives you background on our protagonists and antagonists. But the first 30 minutes is a very slow burn. It really picks up about I think around the beginning of the second act is when it picks up. And so I actually really enjoyed it. I've watched Atragon. Probably this podcast makes maybe my third or fourth time watching the movie. I really enjoy it. And so before kind of we get into our likes or dislikes and some thoughts, we need to probably, get the elephant out of the room, or at least, shove him into the corner somewhat and talk about what everyone critiques this film for is its nationalism versus patriotism argument.
Right. Yeah. As far as my opening thoughts, though, I'm with you. I really enjoyed this movie. This was my first time seeing it. I have never actually watched it. I've known about it. It's one of those movies that I just know because I'm in the kaiju realm, but It's one that I've never actually sat down and watched until I did for this podcast. And yeah, I was very surprised. I find myself every time I watch a Showa era film that I've never seen before, I find myself enjoying it more than I expect. Like really? I go in expecting to enjoy them, to a certain extent, because I do enjoy Showa era kaiju films. But with Frankenstein Conquers the World and with Atragon, and there's a few others that I've watched for the first time since starting this podcast. Every time I go into these Showa films, I go in expecting to like them to a certain degree, and I end up liking them more than what I expected. So I'm always surprised by how much I enjoy these Showa era films. But yeah, this is a great movie. Like you said, it does have its flaws, and we will talk about some of the things that the problems I have with it. But overall, it's great. It has a lot of great themes, has a lot of great acting, and I think it's worth watching.
It really is an ensemble cast. It really, like your typical Toho, like it leaves out a few of our favorites like Takarada and some others. But there's some solid Toho players in this movie, and the reason I think I really enjoy Showa era films more so than maybe Heisei or Millennium films is because they tend to be maybe a little bit more thoughtful in their themes, especially with Atragon. Atragon, we'll get into it in more detail in just a little bit, but Atragon's main running theme of nationalism versus patriotism is very thoughtful and well done. And I think that's a testament to sort of Honda's directing style and everything that all that work his crew and some others put into films like this. I just feel like especially earlier Showa films tend to be a little bit more thoughtful in their now there are a lot of them are blunt in their themes. I'm not saying that they're subtle, because films like this and some others are not subtle about their themes, but they're at least for the most part thoughtful in how they portray and sort of execute those ideas throughout a film.
Yeah, and that's one thing. At least as far as his kaiju films go, because I haven't really explored a lot of his non-kaiju films. But as far as kaiju films, Honda is not necessarily known for his subtlety in themes.
Absolutely not.
The themes are right there in front of you, but in a good way. They're not like hammering you over the head, but there's such a and a big part of it, and we'll talk about that in our mailbag segment, but a big part of that is also Sekizawa and his writing style for when he was the screenwriter. The themes are so interwoven into the movie that every aspect of the movie has that theme up front and present, and I like that. I like that in these old Showa movies. You talked about how this has a lot of the classic Toho actors and stuff in it. One that I didn't even mention because he played such a small, not a super small role, but he played a minor role in the movie, but is Akihiko Hirata.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Sarazawa from Gojira.
He was one of the, he was Agent 23. He was Agent 23 from the Mu Empire. Yep.
Yeah, so having him in here was great, and all the other ones that we mentioned was great. So yeah, the acting in this movie is definitely a positive thing, because everybody is turning in great performances in this movie. Continuing in our positives for this movie, what are some other positive things that you have for this movie?
Oh man, see, as a fan of Harryhausen films, and you'll understand where I'm going in just a second.
Okay.
As a fan of Harryhausen films, I can appreciate that. I feel like this movie is loosely based. I'm not going to say it's direct. It's a direct getting tongue tied. There we go. Directly inspired by 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea / Mysterious Island, and I just I really, really appreciated that. I did. Some other likes that I have for this film are, the set design. The set design is beautiful for this film. Specifically when we first get introduced to the Mu Empire. Just some of that set design, the costume design, the tapestry paintings that sort of give the illusion of a much larger throne room than what what the set would allow. It really is beautiful stuff.
Yeah, it really is. I love the set designs that they have in this. And I will go ahead and get one of the fun facts out of the way right off the bat. This movie was made in 4 months. They had 4 months to make this movie because they were pushing to try to get it out by December. And so they had to split up and film, have 2 teams that were filming simultaneously, because that's the only way they were able to get it done. But the fact that they put this movie together in 4 months and it looks as good as it does. Let's talk about the special effects. Of course, it's Tsuburaya. We already know Tsuburaya is great when it comes to monster effects and special effects. But some of the special effects in this are really, really outstanding. One of the things that I enjoyed was there's a scene where an American submarine is chasing after one of the Mu submarines, and it dives too deep, and they end up getting crushed by the pressure from being so deep.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, it's model work. Of course, that's how they did it. But seeing the physical submarine, the American submarine, slowly be crushed and then just boom explode was fantastic. Like, I mean, we just watched Underwater just a couple of weeks ago, and seeing this here in the 60s, how they did it, it was just so fantastic.
Yeah, some of the, especially the effects work from that scene. I'm interested. I was kind of curious. I was watching it, and I'm thinking, how did they do that? Did they stop motion? Did they maybe put some kind of vacuum in the back of that model that sucked, sort of like just basically treated it like a tin can? You just suck the air out of it. But it was super interesting. Yeah, you're right. The model work, especially in the miniature work, for this film, is super intricate, and I just really loved it. My favorite prop / effect, of course, is we got to talk about the Gotengo. Captain Jingushi's. I hope I said that right. The captain's ship, the main ship that you see, the one with the giant drill on the front of it. It's just this epic sort of this Captain Nemo inspired, Nautilus inspired machine that's just so powerful. And just the model work on that thing is just great. And so is the some of the shots where it sort of forces perspective. It gives you gives you a good sense of scale and size, especially in regards to the Gotengo, and some with Manda. Although I'm a little bit disappointed with sort of the way Manda was portrayed in this, but yeah, the model work and the miniature work, just all of it was phenomenal.
Yeah. He really pulled out all the stops in this movie, and like, again, going into the fact that it only took 4 months,
right?
And to have that kind of intricacy in the Gotengo. I, just like you, I'm a huge fan of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, The Mysterious Island, all those Jules Verne novels, and you can clearly see the inspiration in this movie. Like, you can really clearly see it. And I don't know the original story that this was drawing from, if that was heavily inspired by 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea as well, but this movie definitely has it. And we'll get into that, because there's more to that, I think, in the characters as well. But you mentioned Manda.
Yeah, he was referring. Well, I watched the English and Japanese dub. I watched this movie twice, and in both, I want to say it was pronounced Munda, not Manda, or Americanized version of it.
Yeah, but I don't really care with these monster names. I don't really care how you pronounce them, as long as you understand what. But let's talk about Manda, because again, this was my first time seeing this movie. I knew about this movie. I knew that this was where Manda came from, because of course, Manda appears in later movies in Destroy All Monsters and in Final Wars.
Right.
But I did not realize how little Manda is in this movie.
Right. Yeah. It's so little. In fact, I was going to ask you this earlier in the conversation, but it wasn't really the right time. But I was going to ask you, Travis, would you even consider this a kaiju movie, considering how little screen time Manda actually got?
Yeah, it really, I would say it barely counts. It barely counts. Now, there is a reason behind that. It's one of the fun facts that the original story and the way they wrote it did not have a kaiju in it at all. They didn't have Manda in it. And Tanaka, the producer, said, we need to put a monster in this movie. We need to put a kaiju in here. And so that's when they came up with Manda, and they put Manda in there. But there's really some iconic scenes that I have seen people share on Twitter. I've seen people share around, and have even seen models made of the iconic scene of Manda wrapping around the Gotengo.
Yeah.
underwater.
Yeah, there's a
And
beautiful resin kit that you probably have seen of
mhm.
that scene where Manda is wrapped around the Gotango. It's hard to get your hands on these days. I want to say it's a much older kit. It's very
Mhm.
expensive, but it's beautiful.
Oh,
Um,
it is. And so I expected that scene to be more impactful in the
mhm.
movie, and it just wasn't. It really just was not that impactful in the movie at all. And so it's almost like, even though I love kaiju, I love giant monsters, and I do like Manda, the way Manda's used in like other movies, but I just think like you could have just left Manda out and it wouldn't have made a difference in this movie.
No, I don't think it. I think you're right. Now I do like this movie. This movie would. I'm glad that it did have a kaiju. I'm glad that Manda is in the movie. But even if the creature was not in the film, I still probably would have watched this movie because it is a good movie. It really. I've heard other podcasts and people around the interweb say that this is Subaraya and this is Toho this is the height of Toho. I'm not going to go that far and say this is the pinnacle of Toho, but it's very good. It's a very good film for
Yeah.
all the things that it tries to be and accomplish and explore. It's a very good film, and this is not this. This will fall into sort of our fun facts section, but this is not the only time we're going to see Manda. Of course, we all know him from Destroy All Monsters when I think he was attacking London, maybe, or it's the iconic scene of that movie where he's wrapped around the bridge. I can't remember what city he's actually in. It
Yeah, I
may
can't
have been,
remember now.
it may be Russia. No, Rodan was, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But,
Yeah, I need to rewatch that. It's been a while since I've rewatched that one. So.
He was also in Ultra Q, and I found this out. I
Oh
discovered this.
yeah.
Yeah, I discovered this by listening to, I think it was an episode of the KaijuCast where they brought this up. He was in episode 6, titled "Grow Up, Little Turtle," and he portrays the dragon Kairu. I hope I'm saying that right.
Mhm.
And we see the full Manda prop in that episode. I went back and watched it to see what it looked like, and we see the full Manda prop in that episode of Ultra Q. But he also sort of made an appearance in episode 12, the one titled "I Saw a Bird," and in that episode, there's like a Viking ship.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's sort of a Viking ship, and at the very, you know how in history we see the Viking ships and some of those older ships, they have like decorative pieces at their front. Is
Mhm.
that called the bow? You're a boat
Yeah,
person.
yeah. The front of the boat's called the bow.
Okay, it's called okay. So you can see at the bow of the ship this decorative dragon head, and basically they took the Manda puppet, chopped its head off, and put it at the tip of that boat, which is the theory, which leads to the theory that in Destroy All Monsters, everyone kind of know, if you're familiar at all with how Manda looked in Atragon, and then you go and you watch Destroy All Monsters, you notice that he doesn't quite look right. There's just something a little bit different about him, and basically his horns and his little mustache and his fur are all removed. And so
Mhm.
basically, what they did was they chopped off the head of Manda. And used it for Ultra Q. Well, they still had to make a new head, probably because it was water damaged in Ultra Q. I don't know that for sure, but I'm guessing it was probably water damaged from using it, from chopping it up, from basically chopping it off and splicing it onto this boat, and then it sinking, and then them using it for a water scene, because we all know in these films, water scenes destroy suits. We've
Right.
seen it
Yeah.
time and time again, but the theory is that they had to resculpt the head of Manda, and so that's why it looks quite a bit different than what he did in this film, is because it's a brand new head sculpt, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Just as a little tidbit, It has nothing to do with kaiju, but so the bow of a ship is just that's the front of the ship.
Mhm.
I learned it because when you bow forward, so it's the
Okay.
forward part of the ship. But the carved decorative part that's on the front of old boats is called the figurehead. And
Okay.
so
So that's where
that's
we
what.
get that. That's where we get that terminology from. Then. Okay, that's cool.
Yep. So anyway, I just a little bit of nautical FYI. So,
The more you know.
yeah. I am glad though, going along with what you're talking about with Manda. I am glad that Manda is in this movie, if for no other reason than it is what made me watch this movie finally. Because I wouldn't have. I probably would have eventually watched it. I don't know. I probably wouldn't have watched it if it wasn't for this podcast. And having Manda in there's what was like, well, I need to watch it because it's the podcast
Mhm.
for the podcast. And I'm very happy I did. Now we have to get into the main thing that I love the most about this movie,
Sure, go for it.
which is Captain Jinguchi.
Yeah, the captain. Yeah, let's spend a little bit of time talking about the captain because I know you and I both have some thoughts on him and his character.
Yes, absolutely. Do you want to start?
Yeah. So basically, Captain Jinguchi was a holdover or a holdout from World War II, and if anyone's familiar with World War II and some of that history in Japan, there were some soldiers, if I'm getting my history correct, there were some soldiers that even after the ceasefire or after the war ended, there were still some soldiers that continued to fight or continued to want to fight, and that was either because they thought that the ceasefire or ending the war was unjustified, or they just didn't get the message because it wasn't like today where you just hop on a cell phone with somebody and say, hey, the war's over, okay, let's all go home.
Right.
It wasn't like that back then, and I'm not trying to make light of all that because it's very serious business, but yeah,
Right.
he's a Japanese holdout, a very dignified captain who loves his country, which we can kind of get into. I would call him a patriot, not a nationalist. Is what I would say he is. He is a patriot. He loves his country, and the main difference between patriotism and nationalism is, you love your country, but you don't feel like you're superior to everyone else. You can still love. Nationalism says that your country is the best regardless, and you look down your nose at other places. But patriotism just says, I love my country. I'll fight for my country. And I know that's a sort of a neutered explanation of what the difference between patriotism and nationalism, but because that subject matter has so many different nuances and layers to it. But the captain, he loves Japan. He fought for Japan in the war. He still believes that Japan. He still loves Japan. He believes that Japan needs to be fought for. It's worth fighting for. And honestly, I don't know about you, and I'll let you answer. I'll let you I'll let you give your thoughts on this, Travis. So I'll ask you: do you think that the captain is sort of a tragic character?
Yes. Oh, I absolutely feel he's a tragic character. I can see where some people looking at this may view him as stubborn, may view him as, and kind of maybe get irritated with the character because he's kind of stubborn. But to me, this fits perfectly with the type of character that he is, and it does add to the tragedy of his character. And again, going back to the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, it's the same reason why I consider Captain Nemo a tragic character, because he is so obsessed with isolation and being away from humanity that he is determined to, no matter what, be away, and he's going to sink any ship that threatens that. And that, it just so that that 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea kind of inspiration came through again here with Jinguchi. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the history. Now, you mentioned a little bit about the Japanese holdouts.
Sure.
Now, in Japan, and I'm not saying that Japan is unique in this, because there are plenty of countries who do this and have this kind of mentality, especially during wartime.
Sure.
But it seems to be more prevalent in Japan, or at least more fiery. I don't know how else to describe it in Japan than anywhere else. But there was this sense of nationalism, sense of patriotism, sense of duty during World War II that wasn't just for the soldiers, but for all of the citizens, where every citizen of Japan was supposed to be willing to die rather than surrender.
Right. And
there's a great YouTube video by a YouTuber called Linfamy, Linfamy.
Okay.
He does a lot of history of Japan and stuff, but he does it with humor. I really like his sense of humor and stuff, but he does talk a lot about the history of Japan. But there's one video that he did about the Japanese high school girls forced to be battlefield nurses in World War II. They were called Himeyuri.
Okay.
And in that video, you really see the soldiers' mentality, the citizens' mentality, this idea of, never give up. You are not allowed to give up. You are not allowed to surrender. And so when the ceasefire happened, when the surrender happened, Japan as a country surrendered at the end of the war. There were a lot of soldiers who did not believe that Japan would have surrendered. And so they didn't believe that it was real. Or there was some that just refused to surrender still. And so there were a bunch of Japanese holdouts. And at the time that this movie came out in 1963, some had already came forward, or some had been discovered. But actually, there were still more being discovered even after this movie came out, all the way up into the 70s.
Right.
Where these soldiers spent decades in jungles fighting a war that had ended. And their determination. And so that kind of real life event and real life story is playing a part here with Jinguchi. And so
it's sort of like country above all else.
Yeah.
You fight for your country regardless until your very last breath.
Yeah. I think it's also really good that I think Honda and Sekizawa, by using this film, was not just highlighting the holdouts, the fact that there were some holdouts out there, but even emotions that were happening within Japan, within the actual country itself. Because you have to remember, at the time that this movie came out, the war had only ended like 20 years before. There were still plenty of people who were not just alive during the war, but were part of the war and fought in the war.
Right. And
some of them had trouble letting go of the past and moving on and moving into this new Japan that was being built of being its own kind of, because Japan really flourished once you got to the 60s and 70s. That's when Japan really started to flourish, and economically and technologically and everything. And so they are moving into that age of Japan, but you still have some that are holding on to the past and holding on to those grudges. And so I think that Sekizawa and Honda were kind of not just talking about, these holdouts, these ones who were over in on the islands who are refusing to give up, but also the people within the country who are refusing to give up. And I think that mentality and that kind of theme is not just for Japan. It doesn't just apply to Japan, because there are plenty of people, and look at what we're going through now in the United States, who cannot let go of the past and move forward into a better future.
Yeah, there was the one moment that really just sort of encapsulated this for me when I was watching this was it happened. I want to say it was around the 50-minute mark. It was around the 1 hour mark. I know that where Jinguchi was having an argument with the admiral, and basically the admiral sort of explained or talked. He basically explained to the captain that Japan abolished war. That sort
Hmm.
of gave birth to is it the JSDF, the Japanese self-defense force?
Self-defense force. Mhm.
Yeah. And it's an interesting, tense moment that ends with the statement by the admiral, where to the captain, where he just says, "You're just a ghost wearing rusty armor,"
Mhm.
basically alluding to the captain just being out of touch. He's a ghost of a bygone era, and he just needs to move on.
Yeah, and the admiral, again, the acting from
Oh
both
yeah.
of those characters, especially, was so good. But there's even a line that the admiral says there. He says, "You speak of a time that is 20 years old. We've
Mhm.
asked you to decide for today." So
Right.
he's like, you're talking about things that happened 20 years ago. We need to figure out what we're doing now.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it's such a great, one of the things I love about Jinguchi, and especially the portrayal by the actor, is you really see the conflict in him. You can see
You
it in
do.
his eyes. You can see it
You
in
do.
his facial expressions. He is obsessed, but
Mhm.
he's not stubborn. He's
No.
dedicated, but he's not a fanatic.
He is when we first meet the captain, you sort of get the impression that he's just this emotionless warmonger.
Hmm.
And by the end of the film, you see that he's not. He's a patriot who loves his country and will do whatever he feels is necessary to further his cause that he believed was the honorable one. And
Yeah.
if I'm not, and by the end of the film, it's interesting to see that the admiral even in a way comes to his side to fight alongside Captain Jinguchi in the Gotango against the Mu Empire.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's super interesting, and I loved the interactions between some of these characters. Um, Man, it's just I'm just thinking about it right now, and
Hmm.
such wonderful. You're right, such wonderful acting, such this whole film it's in itself is just a really, really nice example that you can, as far as Toho is concerned, and as far as us as kaiju and tokusatsu fans are concerned, you don't always have to have monster wrestling to have a good film.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, and one of the things that I mean, it's an obvious thing. But they reiterate it when I took writing classes, for like screenwriting and novel and prose writing, um, that when you are trying to weave a theme throughout your story, that you need to have your theme be on a micro scale and a macro scale. You need to
Mhm.
have it, featured on a very personal level between like individual characters, but also have the theme portrayed in a bigger way that covers all of the characters at once. And we get that in this movie, because we talked about Jinguchi and his inability to let go of the past and move on with the world. Uh,
Mhm.
but that same mentality and theme is with the Mu Empire, because they're holding on to a time period when they were the dominant empire on the
Right.
planet, and they're trying to get that back instead of moving on with the rest of the world. I was just going to say that, and I think that's really interesting how that same theme and mentality kind of is portrayed in the bigger picture of the Mu Empire.
Right. Um, man, there's just so much to unpack here that we don't necessarily have time for.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just trying to find a good segue at this point. So let's talk a little bit about the Mu Empire.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about the Mu Empire. they're supposed now it falls into some of my dislikes, and I don't know if it's really considered, if you would consider this petty or just sort of trivial stuff, but they're portrayed as this sort of advanced civilization, more advanced even than the surface dwellers. I guess I
Right.
think that's what they called them, the surface dwellers.
Mhm.
But they're still fighting with spears and swords instead of actual gun weapons. So I'm wondering if they're not necessarily the most advanced civilization, but they think of themselves as, they're arrogant enough to think of themselves as the most advanced civilization, because they've lived underground for so long, they don't know what's going on the surface.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and I can see that. I can see how that can be an interpretation of it. I'm with you on. I do think that it's kind of dumb that when the Gotengo comes in and they actually start charging in on the Mu Empire, that the Mu citizens are fighting with swords and spears, when we have seen that they do have this advanced technology, in their submarines and in all, throughout the city and stuff like that.
That's true.
So I don't like that, but I think that is a product of the timing. They only had 4 months to make this movie, so they really couldn't do very much. One small thing about the Mu Empire that I do appreciate, though, if you paid attention to the extras in the background, they weren't all one nationality.
Oh no, they weren't. They were. I think I remember seeing you. You did bring this. You did bring it up that actually, they had a really diverse civilization down there.
Yeah, you can look at the now, of course, the main ones who are doing the talking and the acting are Japanese, because it's a Japanese film, and so you're going to have the Japanese actors.
Right.
But as far as the extras and the background characters, they had people from all different races and hair colors and all this stuff, and so it really kind of gives you this picture of this empire that spanned multiple areas on the globe, and how they would have been a diverse group, because like the story of the movie says that their empire kind of was the one that influenced all of the other empires all across the planet. So it makes sense why they would be kind of a more diverse group of people, and I like that they actually followed that up with the extras in the background.
Right. Yeah, I thought that part was really interesting too. That because we've had Toho sort of attempt diversity in past film, or not. I don't think this was 63. So yeah, past films. So 62, King Kong versus Godzilla. That was an attempt at diversity. But this film was, I feel like, way more successful at it, because it really did give the impression, like you had, of a vast, diverse civilization, instead of just a lost city of Atlantis with one nationality that somehow got sunk into the ocean.
Yeah. And while we're still talking about likes, before we move on to anything else, I do want to talk about the scene where Mu is attacking the city, and so you have all of the soldiers who are waiting for midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's just such a tense scene.
Oh, it's so good. It's just so tense, and it's so quiet and everything. And then, of course, the special effects of the buildings falling, the ground collapsing is all great, but the tension leading up to that was so good. So I had to highlight that moment in the film as well. But we've kind of gone back and forth on our likes and dislikes. Is there any other things that you like, little small things that you want to talk about, either likes or dislikes?
The Manda laser.
The Manda laser.
The Manda laser on top of the of the Mu ship. Yeah, I was like, like this gold
Mhm.
plated dragon rises up out of this boat, out of the bow of the ship, and it just shoots a laser at the Gotango. And I just thought that was, it's like, okay, all right, it reminds you that we are watching sort of sort of an um, over the top fantasy
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, I liked the debut of the Gotango. In fact, the Gotango is supposed to be this submarine, this really rugged submarine, but the very first scene we see it in, it flies. So
Mhm.
I just thought that was kind of weird. I didn't have a like or a dislike about it. I just thought it was kind of weird that the first scene that we see it in, it flies instead of goes underwater. So yeah, I just really thought that was interesting. And the Gotango is actually probably my favorite, maybe favorite or second favorite, right behind maybe the SY3, as in terms
Mhm.
of my favorite Toho mechanical weapons.
Oh yeah.
Not counting like Mogura and Mechagodzilla and stuff. Like, I'm not talking about the mechanical kaiju. I'm just talking about the actual weapons, like the SY3, the Mazers, and then of course the Gotango.
Yeah. Yeah. One little thing that and I think this might close out the whole our whole discussion, but uh, it might be just a product of the time because this was a
Mhm.
movie from the '60s. But that secret Mu agent that was supposed to be a reporter, he was not subtle at
Oh
all.
no, absolutely not. There was no subtlety whatsoever in that man.
It's like, how in the world did you guys not pick him out as the bad guy from the beginning? He is so just
Yeah, yeah.
obvious.
I think that was because they were trying to be they were trying, rush production. They were just
Yeah.
try to
Well, it,
handhold they were trying to handhold the audience as much as they could without being totally obvious about it. But my God, you're right.
yeah, yeah, it is not subtle, but I mean, that's just a small thing.
Oh,
Um,
before I forget, another little small thing I wanted to bring up, and I'll just kind of ask you, do you like it or you don't like it? The Moo um scuba gear. Best
mhm.
way I know how to put it. Oh, the creature from the Black Lagoon meets underwater, since we just did since we just did the
Yeah,
underwater movie.
yeah. It looks they looked like they were made out of duct tape. They really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
They really looked like they were made out of duct tape, but
But that's neither here nor there. I think that was just sort of a product of its time.
yeah, yeah, that's little things. That's not really taking away from the movie, but it's just little
No,
funny
it's not.
things.
Yeah.
One last little final fact that I wanted to bring up. Captain Jinguchi was originally going to be played by the famous actor Toshiro Mifune.
Okay.
But he was unable to because of other commitments to other
Sure.
films, because he had been in a lot of films. If you've ever seen a samurai film, you have seen Mifune, because he has
Okay.
been in all of them. But he is just one of those really big famous Japanese
Sure.
actors of that time period. And so I would have liked to have seen him in this. I get why he wasn't. But the actor who did play Captain Jinguchi was really good, so I can't really
Yeah.
complain.
Yeah,
But I was
absolutely.
like, I mean, to the idea of having legendary Mifune in this film would have been great. So let's get into our Godzuki scores. So for anybody who's new to the podcast, we like to score our movies out of Godzukis because we like to pay homage to the great Godzuki, who is Godzilla's bumbling nephew from the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and embrace the silly side of kaiju films by
Yeah.
using him as our yardstick.
Because why the heck not?
Yeah, why the heck not? So, Michael, out of 5 Godzukis, how many Godzukis do you give Atragon?
Okay, so are we going to give our scores and then final thoughts, or do you want me to give final thoughts then score?
Whatever order you want to do it in, but yeah, you can do both together.
Okay, I'll go ahead and just give since I did final thoughts and score last time. I'll give my score first, then my thoughts. For this film, for Atragon, I gave it a very positive 4 out of 5 Godzukis, and for many reasons. So my thoughts on the film are, for this one, Honda pulls no punches with this film being a direct critique of blind patriotism and Japanese nationalism, or nationalism in general for that matter. The portrayal of Jingushi as a Japanese holdout was an interesting choice for the film that fits within the overall story very well. By the end of the film, we begin to feel sorry for him and understand why he is the way he is. He's desperately clinging to a bygone era by any means necessary. I feel it's something that we can all relate to, for better or for worse. The effects work, while dated, is very well done. Manda, the miniature work, the Gotango prop, and so much more combined to make a very well done, beautifully composed film that for the most part is believable and enjoyable. Although the first 30 minutes feels like forever, they were integral for setting up the themes that we'd explore in the latter parts of the film. Overall, I enjoyed this movie for what it was, a 20,000 Leagues, mysterious island-inspired tale of a former captain trying to remain relevant in a world that has since left him behind.
Yeah, that's great final thoughts. So I also give it 4 out of 5 Godzukis because I think it is a fantastic film, despite all of its flaws that we've mentioned. The first 30 minutes of this film seem to move very slowly, but once Captain Jingushi is introduced, the movie becomes much better. The themes of letting go of the past and absolute devotion to a cause are explored on a macro and micro scale. The actions of Jingushi and his men, who are devoted to a war that ended 20 years earlier, is reflected in the Mu Empire's refusal to embrace a world that had changed without them. The complexities of Jingushi really elevate this film. The biggest shortcomings it has stem from the rushed production schedule. However, the fact that Honda, Sekizawa, along with Tsuburaya's special effects, were able to make an engaging movie with complex and deep themes that echo down to this day in only 4 months proves why those men are considered legends in the Japanese film industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's our final thoughts on that. Everyone, go watch Atragon. It is so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is
so
absolutely. Yeah, it is. It should be required watching for any. I feel for any Toho fan, especially, but any fan of like Tokusatsu or even Kaiju, because it does have a little bit of Kaiju action in it. But
yeah,
regardless,
just Japanese films in general.
Yeah,
like we talk a lot about Akira Kurosawa being, the this big name in Japanese filmmaking, and so of course, if you're wanting to get into Japanese film, you definitely want to look into him. You definitely want to look into Ishiro Honda's other movies, Gojira especially. But this one, I think, I know that Thorax, our Patreon, said that he puts this movie almost at the same level of Gojira, and I think as far as themes and how much it really captures the feelings and emotions of a people in a time that it came out in, it is almost as good as Gojira when it comes to that. Yeah. I think the problems that it has are just the rushed schedule,
right? Because it's not like this film. I don't know what the budget for this film was, but I don't believe, from the looks of it anyway, it didn't have an extremely low budget, because it doesn't feel like an extremely low budget movie, but it does feel rushed. And I think that's one of the main things to keep in mind when watching this film. It was rushed, but the end product that we actually got is really, really fantastic.
Yeah. So are we ready to move into our next segment?
Absolutely. Let's go for it.
All right. So let's dive into the mailbag.
What's in the mail today?
So we have a letter from a I don't know if I want to call him a fan, a friend of the podcast.
Okay. We like friends of the podcast.
Yeah, Nathan from the Monster Island Film Vault podcast sent us an email, and it's leave it to Nathan. He's kind of the king of the actually.
It's sort of his shtick, right? I mean, he'll even go full Marchand on his own show.
Yeah. So he kind of did that with a comment that I made in the last episode. So I'll go ahead and read his email out. It says, greetings from Monster Island. I just finished listening to your episode on Ebera, Horror of the Deep, or Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, if you will. I enjoyed your discussion, but there was one point Travis made that I think needs some clarification. He said Fukuda directed Godzilla films in a way where the kaiju and human plot lines don't intersect until they do. That's not so much his trademark as it is a trademark of screenwriter Shinichi Sekizawa. It was a revolutionary formula he brought to the genre because he was tired of monster movies where it was humans solving monster problems. Instead, he had monsters solve human problems. He also liked giving the characters their own distinct stories that didn't have to be completely connected to the monsters. You see this especially in the two previous Godzilla films to this one, which were directed by Honda. The Princess Salno story in Ghidorah is almost completely separate from the monster stuff until the end when the kaiju accidentally save her. And then in Monster Zero, everything with the Zillions and humans have their own stories that's separate from the monsters. And he says, actually, the monsters are barely in the movie. So anyway, I just thought I'd inform you guys of that. Screenwriters are unsung heroes, especially in tokusatsu. Keep up the good work and Godspeed. Sincerely, Nathan Marchand, host and curator of the Monster Island Film Vault.
Well, thank you, Nathan. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And he's right. You know, I put that credit onto Fukuda, and I do think that Fukuda's style of directing is very different than Honda's, and I think we mentioned in the last episode that having that different directing style actually kind of was interesting, and I actually kind of like that that Fukuda's directing style is different. But as far as the story elements, the credit really needs to go to Sekizawa, because he is right. You know, when it comes to some of these other films that Sekizawa wrote the screenplays for, it didn't matter who directed them, but you know, the story, the human side of things and the monster side of things don't really connect to each other directly until eventually they do.
Right. Yeah.
And I like that. And so, yeah, he's right. I should have known that it was more on Sekizawa's side of things, not the director side of things, because there are examples of it even in the Honda directed Godzilla films.
Yeah, and I think that was a mistake we both made. If I'm not mistaken, we both sort of gave the story credit to Fukuda. And yeah, he's right. We should have really just mentioned the screenwriter a whole lot more. And I know that Nathan is a screenwriter in his own right. He's an author and a screenwriter himself, and so it's very natural that he would kind of give us that type of pushback, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate someone trying to keep us intellectually honest.
Yep, keeping us honest. So thank you for that. And so if anyone wants to send us comments or praise or want to tell us what we're doing wrong, you can do that at kaijuweekly@gmail.com. Please send us some feedback. We'd love to hear from the community.
Sure.
And our mailbag is getting kind of small. There's not as many letters in it, and whenever we run out of letters, the mailbag likes to go on a rampage. So we need to keep the mailbag in check by filling it with letters. But since we're in the letter segment, I figured this is a perfect time to read an iTunes review that we have.
Oh, we haven't gotten one of those in a while.
Yeah, which this one is actually a few weeks old, but we kept meaning to read it and we kept forgetting to read it. But this one is from username Dennis N59. It's a 5-star review, and it says, I absolutely love the Kaiju Weekly podcast. One thing Kaiju Weekly offers that none of the other Kaiju podcasts really do is weekly news. Kaiju Weekly stays up to date and relevant in their podcasts, as well as reviewing classic kaiju goodness from a variety of different monster franchises. The camaraderie between Travis and Michael is fantastic, as each offers something different to the show. Give this a listen, whether you are an experienced fan or a noob like myself.
Awesome. Thanks, Dennis. We appreciate it. We've actually that's super encouraging. It's a super encouraging review because we've often thought about cutting out the news portion altogether. But yeah, we really appreciate that.
Yeah. Every time that we talk about cutting out the news segment, I always stop and think, I'm like, but that is one of the things that sets us apart, because there are a lot of, kaiju movie review podcasts out there, and that's not knocking any of them. They all bring something new and something different to the whole podcasting game, and of course a bunch of them are our friends, but one thing that a lot of them don't do is weekly news. There's very few of them that cover news at all, and then very few of them are weekly. So every time we talk about getting rid of it, I always come back to that's kind of the thing that sets us apart, and so I kind of want to keep it around. But yeah, maybe more people can let us know how they feel about the news segment, since we heard this person's viewpoint on it, and then we can, maybe in the future we'll make a decision. But until now, we're keeping it around.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So, thank you to everyone for listening. If you want to follow the podcast on social media, we are at Kaiju Weekly on Twitter and Kaiju Weekly Pod on Instagram. You can send questions, comments, or answers to trivia questions to our email, kaijuweekly@gmail.com, which I didn't actually read the trivia question for this week. The trivia question for this week, because we are recording ahead because of me moving, I didn't want to ask a question that people would not be able to answer, and we weren't going to be able to give people proper shout outs. So I just want to hear from everyone on social media, what is your favorite episode of the 1966 Ultraman series?
Okay.
Yeah, so you can do that. Send us those answers. Kaiju Weekly at Kaiju Weekly on Twitter and KaijuWeekly@gmail.com. You can also find us at the Kaiju Groupie Facebook group. Also follow at Kaiju Groupie 54 and at the Kaiju Groupie on Twitter and Instagram. A big thank you to Brian, Shijir, and Thorax for supporting us on Patreon. You can also support the podcast at patreon.com/Kaiju Weekly Pod, or by leaving a review on Apple's podcast app, or by subscribing to our YouTube channel, because we're trying to hit 100 subscribers by the end of July. And you have anything else you want to say?
No. All I'm going to say is you can follow me on Twitter at Kaiju Groupie Pod, not Kaiju Groupie 54.
Yeah, I haven't updated on my
It's okay. It's okay. But yeah, you can just stay up to date with us. And most importantly, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't already, that's the big thing we're pushing right now, because we're trying to grow that. And if you do, you'll notice when we do upload episodes to the YouTube channel, we add little visuals to the videos. It's not just a static audiogram that plays on screen. It's an actual. We try our best anyway to give visual references to the things we talk about in the news section, so that you guys know what the heck we're even talking about.
Yeah. So to close out this episode, I'm going to say, help control the Gotengo population. Have your Atragons spayed or neutered.
Okay, that really doesn't make any sense, but okay.
No, it doesn't. Well, it makes more sense than, ooh, Kaiju Weekly.
Oh, Jesus. All right, cut the episode.